Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. Things change over time as you go through your life. Your attitudes and opinions about things change, your philosophies, your politics change. And the weird thing is, when it comes to people's investments, often people want to hold on to old ideas way too long. And, I always harp on price driving sentiment, where essentially investors will let the price of something tell them how they think they should feel about the asset. So when assets get very beaten down, they will say, oh, it's a terrible asset. It always has been, and it'll never come back. It'll never be worth anything. They're going bankrupt and it's going to zero. And then after the market turns, the prices start coming up. Then eventually, people will jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, yeah, that's a good company. It's a good asset. I should invest in it now that it's risen a bunch. And they never quite have the self awareness to look backwards and say, oh, maybe I should have invested in it when everyone else was saying it was worthless. And so there's this kind of resistance, in effect, of assimilating new information and changing your opinions. And it's really weird to see over time how in the investment space, people do that much worse than potentially other places in their lives. And I'm going to use as kind of a prop for this discussion one item that is maybe the most volatile TCG item we've seen in many years now, Monarch First Edition. Yes, there we go. The first edition boxes of Monarch, and I just pulled out a couple here. I think I have like six of these now, maybe eight. I forget if it's six or eight. I know that my average price is $171 each, and that compares to today's market price of $91. And I think this is a good a good example to use about changing your attitudes over time because originally Channel Fireball was playing games with the distribution of this. They, of course, are a large distributor in the US. They took tons of this product and then they held it. They did not distribute it to the retail network. So there was a lack of supply in the retail side, which drove up prices. And then once prices were sky high, Channel Fireball started dumping through their own retail outlets on eBay and TCG Player and their own Channel Fireball marketplace and basically hosed people. So they artificially drove the price of the product up by not distributing when they were a distributor. So, LSS, WotC, Pokemon USA, they rely on distributors to distribute the product, and Channel Fireball played games. Ultimately, the prices then crashed, and we all recall Rudy was buying every box he could at $250, and that looked like a smart idea at the time. Because at the time, with the information that was available, that seemed like a good price. But ultimately, the market lost confidence in the product. And the capitulation continued and continued down to 150, down eventually to 125 and 100. And, I bought some more boxes in there. The original boxes I had bought were at $400. And then more recently, I bought a couple boxes that with bonus bucks rebates, I don't know, they were somewhere around $75 or something. I don't know exactly off the top of my head. But over the whole course of this, Monarch First Edition has attained this almost legendary reputation as a bad product. And so when LSS eventually released the print run numbers for Monarch First Edition in the spring of 2022, and they said it was 125,000 boxes, everyone just lost their mind. The market went crazy. A bunch of the fair weather investors, I guess we'll politely put it, decided they were done with Flesh and Blood. They said this is a junk product. It'll never be investable again, which of course we all know is ridiculous. But they went away. The market crashed, and Flesh and Blood products are still way, way, way underpriced on the market compared to what I believe their long-term value is. And so over this time, people have continued to have a bad outlook on Monarch First Edition. And the problem here is, I believe they are failing to integrate new information into their models. And so maybe they're still in the mindset of, well, this was a $400 product that eventually crashed to $100, therefore it's terrible. Or maybe they're in the mindset that It was a 125,000 print run compared to the approximately 62,000 box print runs of Welcome to Rathe and Arcane Rising. And the Crucible of War print run was something in between. It was around 85 or 90,000 boxes. Somebody put it in the comments. And so these two attitudes of, well, the price crashed and the print runs were high, that makes it a bad product forever. Those attitudes are correct in certain time periods. And the problem is time keeps going on. And we can imagine that every day some number of these Monarch First Edition boxes get opened. They are no longer sealed product. They get busted down to singles, and essentially the sealed product itself is gone forever. And over a long enough time period, that number that remains sealed in the world will dwindle and dwindle and dwindle, and one day it'll probably be under, say, 20,000. And at that point, we can expect that most of those 20,000 will still be locked up in the hands of long-term investors or very enthusiastic collectors who simply want to have the sealed box just to remember the era, remember the product, and because they enjoy displaying it in their office. And you have to be careful that you do not let these attitudes of, well, this is a terrible product, persist too long. Because as those boxes disappear, as the price of the product in the market one day finds its bottom, maybe it's there now, maybe it'll slip more, but as it one day finds its bottom and it starts to come back upwards, there will be a time when the people who allow price to drive their sentiment will slowly turn around and they will start to say, Monarch First Edition is a great investment. And of course, they will be late because they will have paid too much, but and basically they will have missed the opportunity to pay much less. But eventually that will happen. Most people in the market are backwards looking. They look at the current price, which is a result of things in the past. They don't imagine what is the long-term value of this thing and what might the price in the future be. And to put this in perspective, the Magic Unlimited print run is suspected to be about 35 million cards. So 1994, I guess, late 94 when they ran the Unlimited set, 35 million cards. Now, Monarch First Edition was 45 million cards because it's 125,000 boxes, 24 packs per box, and 15 cards per pack, and that's 45 million cards. And so you might think, well, you know, Unlimited at 35 million, Monarch First Edition at 45 million, that's a little full of themselves for LSS to think they should have printed that much. But I think the better comparison is Unlimited to maybe one or all of the original Flesh and Blood products, those being Welcome to Rathe and Arcane Rising and Crucible of War. And maybe we should compare Monarch First Edition print run size to Magic's revised print run size, which is widely believed to be about 600 million cards. Now, I've seen 600 million, I've seen estimates as low as 250 million, but, you know, just depending on where you take within that range, maybe Monarch First Edition print run was as much as 1/6 of Magic Revised print run. And you have to imagine that at the time that Magic Revised came out, people probably said it was printed to oblivion, it would never have any value, the cards would be worthless forever because there's just too many of them. Whether there were 200 million or 250 million or this very high number of 600 million, people probably had very bad things to say about Revised because of that, because of the large print run size. But you fast forward, and I know we're fast forwarding almost 30 years now, but time changes things. Those revised boxes, they eventually got opened. They got lost. They got damaged. They got lost in house fires or floods, or they got bought by card stores and busted into booster packs and slowly sold out of the display case. And over time, all of those printed to oblivion Magic Revised boxes became very, very rare and sought after collector's items, to where today they sell for thousands of dollars if you can even find one for sale. And so I would say that at some point along that road, people had to assimilate that new information that, oh, revised boxes, there aren't as many in the world now as there were before. And maybe that huge print run of 200 to 600 million cards went from being printed to oblivion to, well, I feel like they didn't print enough. And the prices too. I don't know anything about what the prices were at the time, but certainly Monarch First Edition at $400 at the time it came out was considered terrible, and at $200 to $250 was considered a great deal, and then it dropped 66% from there essentially to the approximately $90 today. But along the way, the price will eventually bottom, it'll turn back up, and attitudes will be forced to change. Remember, the market will force you to change your attitude at some point because none of us has enough power to move the market on ourselves, to make the market bend to our will. And so, I guess the point of all of this is keep in mind that new information comes along, new things happen, um, new 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 rumors, new releases, new games, all these new things come out and change the market. And there really is a battle between wanting to say, well, things are very often not different, but also there's a lot of new information. And that's a whole nother philosophical investment video. But essentially, I have discussions with my patrons about the wider economy, about macroeconomic issues, and about how that affects the TCG economy. And one thing that I'm always careful to say when I give my opinion about the wider economy and where we're going on the medium timeline of maybe 2 to 8 months from now is that this is only what I think today. And you can imagine where we are in the macro economy right now. If things go really badly, and let's say that the October read for inflation comes in at an 8% annualized rate, and so then the Federal Reserve starts signaling that they'll have two more 75 basis point increases over what we currently expect. And so then we expect the prime rate to go up to somewhere near 6%. And because of that, after a couple months, businesses are laying off more. And let's say that unemployment increased 4% over what it is now. And, you would be forced, and I would be forced too, to change my opinion on what the medium term macroeconomic outlook is. And right now, I would say I'm pretty neutral on the medium term, but if those sequence of events started to happen, I would be forced to assimilate that new information and change my outlook. And so I always try to be careful that I say, this is simply what I think today with the knowledge that I have in the present. Because all of us must make opinions, we must make buying decisions, selling decisions, etc., only with the information that we have today. And people have this propensity to look backwards in time for evidence that supports their past decisions to have bought or sold or not bought some asset, and to look for confirmation that they did the right thing. And it's really difficult to get a valuable insight out of that because you're always forced to make a decision today. And even if your decision is, I will not sell today, well, that's a decision. It's a decision to not sell. And so you must make a decision now with the information that you have in hand right now. And in the future, you can get new information, more information, better information, and that may change your opinion. So let me know what you guys think. It's a little frustrating when I see people basically holding the same opinion that Monarch First Edition is a dud product and always will be, because we know from history most TCG products do really good on the long timeline. We also know from history that products that were considered printed to oblivion in their own time, eventually they get consumed. Eventually the prices stay too low for too long, the market is too slow to respond, and more of the product gets consumed because of it. And so just be aware, always be willing to assimilate that new information and change your opinion. Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join me on Final Trade. Consider joining the Patreon. Thanks, everyone.